Just make sure everybody's all in. Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of, excuse me, November 14th, 2018. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being broadcast live. It is also being recorded for use at a further date if needed. I would ask you to please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Also, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to change things up just a little bit. I'm going to take a few people out of order. Usually at the end of the meeting, we're in such a hurry to end the meeting that I forget to read the dates to remember. Not only are we going to do that, but in the future, if you should have any events that are school-sponsored events, you can send them to Michelle Kelly, and she will forward them to me, and we will read them and tell you and announce any of the school-sponsored events that someone maybe would want to have announced or someone participate in, as I have one this evening. And seeing Mr. McHugh just walk in, we're going to take him as soon as we do a couple of minor things. Thanks, Mike. Okay, dates to remember. November 21st through the 23rd is no school for the Thanksgiving recess. Central offices will be closed. December 7th, early release, pre-K to 12. It's a professional development day, so keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. It's December 7th. Also, Hanson PTO is presenting their first Cranberry Cove Polar Plunge, freezing for a reason. It's Sunday, January 27th, 2019, and the snow or the rain date, or the cut in the hole in the ice date, might be February 3rd, 2019. The location is Cranberry Cove, Camp Quaney Road. Participants can register prior to the event at eventbrite.com. It's $30 per participant. Each participant is asked to raise a minimum of $35 and will receive their own fundraising page set up by the organizers to make it easier for the donations. Please register prior to the event. No registration on the day of the event. Everyone registered before 12/31/18 will receive a towel to commemorate the event. All participants must be 18 years or older, and all participants must sign a waiver in order to participate. So, have been asked, I am volunteering to participate, so anyone that would like to donate to my page, which if you'd like to come up and speak to this event, we'd be more than happy, would be more than appreciated, because as we know, Hanson PTO is raising some funds. Are there any other school committee members? I'd like to, Mr. Jones.
Sure.
Are you in?
I'm in.
Mr. Howard?
Second.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I'm keeping record.
Mr. O'Brien?
He'll be in his,
I'm there no matter what.
O'Brien's in no matter what.
he'll be in his suit.
Mr. Cullity?
I'm the one that's gonna cut the ice.
Fred?
Whitman guy.
Well, next year, we're gonna do it in Hobart.
I'll donate, though. I will donate.
Couldn't commit.
Ally?
I'm going to take a page out of Fred's book.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna add a little bit to my donation page and say, whoever raises the most money, I'll take him or her or the wife and the husband or the kids out to dinner on me. So whoever raises the most money, that's the challenge. Let's get to it.
Wait, are you talking McDonald's? Can I take you?
All right, I gotta be specific now. Fred's putting me to the test. Johnny Macaroni's type food,
All right.
okay?
That's awesome. East or west?
So, Mr. Jones, are you a participant?
I came in late, I was making coffee.
That's what happens when you come in late.
Coffee a little bit over, and give you a decision after.
Farrow and Simonak are already in, I
Already
haven't
in.
even asked them.
Jumping in the cold water, absolutely.
Okay, so please, anyone that's interested in this event, please come forward. And young lady, would you like to add or subtract anything?
Yeah, I just want to say my name is Melissa Valkovic, and I'm here on behalf of the PTO, and I'm also here as the coordinator and mastermind behind this event. So, just in general, we just wanted to create an event that was open to members of the community while also supporting Indian Head students and their learning community, and we're hopeful that this event will do that. We'll bring the community together and support our students and staff. And as Mr. Hayes just did, I'd like to ask or / challenge everybody here to, take part in this event and consider taking the plunge and freezing for a reason for all of our students. And the other thing that I wanted to add was if you do accept the challenge, would you mind if we advertise your participation in the event and share your pledge page so that we can get, more people involved and hopefully more support from the community. So I just wanted to get people's permission on that before.
Mr. Small just said he was going to sponsor me.
And I most definitely will, and on second thought, we should have a participant from Whitman. I think that's nothing but right. I would like to nominate Mr. Boyce. I'm serious.
Boyce is it. Wait a minute, he's told us for years he's a great volunteer.
Yes, he is.
Right? Wasn't he
Anything
in
for the
that?
kids, yes, he is.
Boyce is
Anything
it.
for the kids.
And by the way, I want to put in just a half a plug for myself. There's a wonderful gift basket when you folks do your raffle, and that I did donate to.
Thank
So
you.
hopefully that will have a great turnout.
Well, even if so I am not jumping. I will put that out there.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I know. But my husband is. Somebody has to be in charge that day. So
You're doing the paperwork, right?
exactly. But with that being said, we will be in need of volunteers to help the event run smoothly. So maybe if you're not able to stick a toe in the water for students, maybe you can at least come over and help us out with some of the other coordination that goes along with the event. So food for thought.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, Thanksgiving Day football is here. It's the 108th playing of the Whitman Hanson Abington rivalry. But as you know, we have this Megatron screen up at the thing that we're trying to raise funds with. So there are a lot of different ways you can do it, but I've had some people approach me, and I've signed them up, and I know some people have signed up with Mr. Rogers by saying, Happy Thanksgiving from the Hayes family. And it's going to play X amount of times during the game and at halftime. And Mr. Rogers has, like I've already sold a bunch of spots, and it was like $100 for 10 times, $50 for 5 times. If you wanted to say something as small as happy birthday to my lovely wife, Anne Marie, that may be $20. But all you have to do is contact Bob Rogers at bobrogerswhrsd.org or .net, either one, or you can call him at 781-618-7433 and leave him a message if he doesn't answer, and he will be happy to take your ad, because that's going to be a big day here at Whitman Hanson. And again, it's the 108th playing of that big rivalry. So we're looking forward to anyone that wants to put any type of ads to help generate some funds. So again, any school-sponsored events that you would like us to mention here at school committee, please get a hold of Michelle Kelly Lindbergh at 781-618-7412, or mail them to her here at Whitman Hanson Regional School District, 600 Franklin Street, and she will be happy to have me read them at the next meeting. Something new to keep us and promote and keep the change, as we've had some big changes. Any questions? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of, October 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Maura, Student Advisory Report, please.
So November 2nd, the drama department's fall production of Footloose was a big hit. The students were absolutely amazing, and everyone was able to kick off their Sunday shoes and have a bit of fun. Yes, I do have some taste in movies. 8th and 9th November was the ELA MCAS retesting. November 9th, grades were available on Infinite Campus for all students and parents to see, as well as the ability to sign up for parent-teacher conferences. November 14th were the math MCAS retakes. Tomorrow will be parent-teacher conferences. November 17th, Whitman Hanson Band and Choir Mattress fundraiser is set, where they will be selling mattresses of different varieties. November 19th will be the Conley Crushers versus Harlem Wizards here at the high school in the gym from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That'll be interesting. November 26th, winter sports will start for the high school. November 29th, grade 8 high school orientation will be here at the high school at 6:30 p.m. November 5th, Conley School Dining for a Cause was successfully held, at the Weymouth 99 restaurant. November 1st marked our 45th day of school, and November 29th will mark our 60th day of school. And I'm excited to leave.
Anyone have any questions for Laura? Thank you. Okay, Jeff, before I move to your report, I'm going to, for the sake of getting Mr. McHugh in and out of here, Mike, would you like to come up? We're going to discuss the cell tower at Hanson Middle School. And Mike, I know, has a gentleman with him that is from the company that if we have any questions, we can ask. That's why we held it off until this meeting, so this gentleman could be available for all of us to speak.
Yes, and as usual, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you taking me out of order. I'm happy to give a quick update and hopefully get the committee's approval, support to move forward. As we had discussed several months ago, when I had proposed the article at town meeting to change the bylaw to allow cell tower development, communication tower development on public property, I'd come before this board because we had identified this particular location after we had spoken to the Conservation Commission, people from the Planning Board, other people in my administration, chose this or identified this as a prime location, given the fact we didn't think we'd have a lot of problems with these boards with a lot of permitting. And I came before this board, and I had said I would come back before and I would ask your permission. I would ask your support before we went further to the Board of Selectmen. And the time frame is that we believe that we probably will have a lease agreement ready to have the Board of Selectmen approve probably the end of this calendar year, beginning of the next calendar year. So I brought with me Sean Mahoney, who is the lead engineer, the lead manager on the project for the company that we did, or I did, or am suggesting that the board award the contract to. We did have 3 bids. They were very competitive bids. We did an analysis with the town accountant, with our auditor, and obviously with my staff, and we came to the conclusion that the company that Sean represents was the most advantageous for the town of Hanson. I think it's important to note that while this was the most financially advantageous, I believe, to the town of Hanson, that as I had recommended, or as I had explained before this committee in the past, this particular project isn't solely about revenues. It's about safety. It's about communication. It's about problems that we had back in March when we had all those horrible storms and people couldn't get a hold of their loved ones because their landlines were down, and we had and still continue to have a major droppage, a major section of the town of Hanson that's not covered by cellular communication. So all of that being said, again, we went through the process of reviewing those 3 proposals, and I'm happy to give you kind of an overview of at least our understanding what the financial advantages will be to the town of Hanson. I believe, in doing the analysis, that within the first 10 years, that the rent alone, the lease alone for the pad on which this communication tower will be located is going to be about $270,000. The bid also included, and which made it extremely advantageous and basically allowed it to win out, it includes a 25% contribution per unit that's installed on that particular tower. And on average, you've got about 3 or 4 units that are installed in such a tower. And we pretty much figured out that's going to be an extra $7,500 a year. So at the end of 10 years, we're looking at approximately $350,000 to the town of Hanson. If we extrapolate that all out, if we go through all the renewals, all the possibilities of renewals and other, not renewals, what's the word I'm looking for, options, we're potentially looking at the end of this particular term of about $1 million. So obviously, again, coupled with the fact that this is a public safety issue, it is a considerable amount of money to the town of Hanson. And for all intent and purposes, for money that possibly can go back to the schools for support, you know, the budget is, the money that we bring in the town of Hanson obviously augments and supports the school budget as well. So given that financial information, I'd like Sean to come up and just give kind of a brief explanation of where the location would be, what the actual tower would look like. It's a monopole, so it's very inintrusive, and the timeline.
I have a map, Mr. Chairman, which shows the location at the middle school. I don't know if you would like me to distribute it. I think I have enough for everybody. Sure.
Thank you.
I apologize.
We can share one.
We'll share. I don't know if Ally, yeah, can give one to Ally.
No, it doesn't matter. I can
We'll
look
share
at
this
it.
one. It's fine.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
We're good.
I apologize, it's in black and white. I had a printer issue, but I think the details you should be able to figure out. Where we're proposing to locate the tower is to the northeast corner of the Hanson Middle School property, to the rear of the building, pretty much out of way of any location that is currently being used by the school. We chose the location because of access to utilities, to be able to tuck it into an area that, like I said, is not being used. It's a wooded area that we'd want to kind of tuck it into. It kind of hides it from neighboring properties and from the rest of the school. The goal is, when you put these towers up, no one likes them. You have to be honest. And when we put them up, we also want to put them in an area where we can hide them as best as possible. Sometimes we can do a great job at it, sometimes we can't. The tower we have chosen to build is what's known as a monopole. It's a smooth tower. It's not like a Eiffel Tower, lattice tower that you'll see over at the golf course at Ritter or at the gas station down the road. It's not a lattice tower. It's a smooth monopole. It'll have antennas sticking out at 4 different levels, potentially 5 different levels for various wireless carriers. Each carrier is at a 10-foot interval. The height of the tower is 150 feet, proposed at 150 feet right now. And, carriers will be at 146, 136, 26, and so on down the line. We have a pretty clean design. I think it's kind of the preferred design by most. We have tried to avoid any of the fake trees because if you've ever seen them, they never look right, in my opinion anyway. And as Mike had mentioned, we have it designed in such a way that we'll be able to host multiple carriers. We should be able to host the fire department and the police department should they want to put equipment up on the tower. And like I said, it's a pretty good placement for the school and for that section of Hanson.
For those of you who may not be familiar with how the map reads, if you're familiar with how you come into Hanson Middle, you come into the road and the school is going to be on your left. If you continue to the right-hand parking lot, there's a small brick building there and there's a road that appears to go out into the woods. Well, it does. it goes out to the leaching field to the septic system. If you follow that road out, you would, when the road bears to the right, you would go to the left corner of the property, and that's where the proposal is. It's a little weird on the map to see it, but if you're familiar with that site, that's where it would be. Toward the East Washington Whitman Street end of that corner, if you're familiar with that cross. Just so, because the map is good, but it's hard to picture.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Fred?
Just curiosity, range on it, and if we want to put school equipment someday on there.
The range is hard to say. The average range on a cell tower now obviously depends on topography, how many users are nearby. If you're in downtown Boston, we're looking at sites down 30 feet and below that broadcast several hundred feet. Here, the coverage is going to be a couple miles in each direction. And the goal is to connect to the existing sites in town, essentially, so there's no gap between the site at the school, the next site down on the other side of town, the next site up in Hanover. So it's, about 2.5, 3 miles. But again, if you have a very large event, it can eat up the signal, so it might not travel that far all the time. You'll find that down here, the sites aren't turned up all the way because there are so many users. If you go up into Maine or if you go up into some really sparsely populated areas, you'll turn those towers on. They'll broadcast for 10, 15 miles. Down here with the density of population, you're talking about 2.5 miles is kind of the...
What about 5G?
That's in development everywhere. So I'm not involved with the 5G, so I can't tell you if that's being put on to the tower at this point, but it is in development with the company. So eventually, everyone is going to be moving towards it. So, and as far as school equipment, again, if there's levels available, that I assume the school doesn't necessarily need very high-powered. I don't know how far you're trying to transmit. If it's just for the property itself, you should be able to put something at 60, 70 feet, which shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
Chris?
Do you know how far away from the school the actual pad is?
My guess is about 300 feet. We don't have the surveys still in process. This is just the lease exhibit. This is kind of the first step. And whereas we just won the RFP a couple weeks ago, all the other engineering is in process, so I don't have the survey of the entire property yet. But my guess right now is about 300 feet from the building itself.
And how tall was the tower?
50.
150?
It's pretty much the standard height you're going to see on most towers. Once you go above that, you have to contact the FAA, and if you can avoid doing that, you will.
Anyone else?
So if it was a non-public site, what would be the proximity to like a commercial or residential, kind of in line with whatever the zoning type requirement would be for that type of thing?
So the zoning in Hanson's actually reasonably tough as far as the locations of towers. We would probably need a variance no matter where we went in town because it is so hard. As of right now, this site is going to need a variance. It is pretty close to one of the lot lines, but it is in a wooded area, and like I said, we felt it was, notwithstanding the proximity to the lot line, it's probably the best location for future development of the property. If you want that access road out to East Washington at some point in the future, we avoided that area. So, I don't think we could have put it anywhere better than really what we have it.
I think it's important to note that the bylaw that was voted in does not allow the town to preclude itself from any of the processes that a private location would require. So, again, we had spoken with various boards and various committees and various departments to try to find the area that would be the path of least resistance. However, as Sean has sort of noted, this project will still more than likely need to go before the ZBA for a variance because it is, I believe, within 50 feet of an abutter. It will also, to a certain degree, have to go through the conservation process as well. But again, we chose this site to promote this site because we thought that, at least in terms of all of these things, conservation in particular, that it wouldn't meet with a lot of problems. Will there be things that may need to be discussed? Yes. We will still need, the proponent will still need to go through any process, any private a proposal would need to. The bylaw that we passed just allowed the possibility to put it on a public site.
Good. Good.
Mike, it also helps out public safety for fire, police,
Oh, yes.
extending the range throughout the town.
Oh, yes, and Sean may have noted, and I may have neglected to, that they have proposed or they have offered locations on the pole for emergency services at, at no cost.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? Chris, I'm sorry?
Were we scheduled to vote on this? We
Yes.
We were?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see it on the.
We were waiting for this gentleman to be able to come.
I would like to note, if I could, Mr. Chairman, the cooperation that we got out of your facilities people, especially on Salmon. One of the reasons, not the complete reason, that I chose this particular proposal that Sean brought forward is Sean visited at least once, if not twice, this particular location, and the others did not. And Sean and Ernie's people worked in collaboration to make sure that this particular proposal was fully vetted in terms of location and applicability. So again, I really wish to extend my appreciation to Ernie and his people. The cooperation that the town of Hanson, my administration, my department gets with the school committee and with the school department, and I've said this on several occasions, is extremely appreciated. And this is just the fruition of just another thing that I think in collaboration we've been able to do with the town of Hanson and the school.
I just want to remind the committee, we are voting to let them move forward. They have several hoops to jump through. This is just a motion to keep it moving, pending all approvals from all boards in the town of Hanson, which could be conservation, ZBA, variances. I do believe, Mike, it was voted at town meeting to move forward already.
That's correct. That is correct, sir.
That's why we waited. There was another question, I think Chris had asked me if we voted on it, and we wanted to bring the engineer forward in case the committee had questions.
I just didn't know we were voting on it, 'cause it didn't have a vote.
Oh, that's just stuff. It's, any of this can be voted on. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So
And at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, I'd be more than happy to update the board as things move forward.
Okay. As you're going along, Mike, I mean, I know it's going to be months and months.
Yes.
As we move forward, but when you feel right and you want to come forward and keep us updated, we'd be delighted to have you.
And I'd be more than happy to come back, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Superintendent's report, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. So, to start with, in early September, Maureen McKenzie, the Director of Food Services here, notified George and myself that she had an intent to retire in January 2019. So we moved forward to post her position effective December 1st, 2018, to give the new person transition time to learn our systems and move forward with what she does. George headed up a small committee of Christine Succo and Lisa Tobin, our nurse leader, to interview candidates for our new food services, or for our food services position. They interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 folks. I'm pleased to present to you our new food services director, Miss Nadine Doucette, who we kind of stole from Pembroke. She's done a bang-up job over there, and I think she'll do a bang-up job for us. So I'd like to introduce Nadine Doucette to the committee. You can stand up.
Welcome aboard.
Nice to meet you.
Nadine's going to start on December 1. Mo's had some health issues currently, so she's doing some work from home, and our assistants here are picking up the slack right now. But Nadine's good to go in a couple weeks, and I think we're going to have some new options for our students, some new collaboration as far as nutrition and wellness in our district. Nadine's got some great ideas, and I look forward to working with her.
Any questions for,
Thanks, Nadine.
thank you, welcome aboard.
Got a question.
Thank you.
First, got a question about
Oh, Bob.
Can you approve selling of coffee? I have another idea. I just went to a conference and you served hot chocolate milk. And it was delicious. So a lot
Caffeinated?
of kitchens are serving it with little mini marshmallows, and you can put them in if you want them for breakfast. And iced coffee, we'll get around. I look forward to that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So continuing on, last Wednesday, George and I went down to the Cape, to Hyannis for the MSC MASS conference. Mr. Small was down there as well. The conference was, some of the workshops were pretty good. I wouldn't say it was the best conference I've ever gone to, but there were some solid takeaways from the workshops. What we did have some solid takeaways were from working with some of the vendors and some of the products that they have to make us more efficient in the district. One of the things that we're looking at is our student information system. And we spoke with School Brains down there, and they're going to come out sometime December, January to give us a preview of what they have to offer. One of the things School Brains does, and I'm not trying to sell their product, I haven't seen it, is collaborating what we have in Health Master for our nurses and our EastBed with our special education department, instead of outsourcing it to two different companies, kind of mainstreaming it through School Brains, and as being as cost-effective as possible. Right now, we have Infinite Campus, we have EastBed, and we have Health Master outsourcing out. We'd like to get one system that is user-friendly to our staff, especially administrative staff, and is cost-effective to our folks. We also, and it's a personal thing for both George and I, we want somebody local to contact if we have problems. And that's one of the things that School Brains did, or does. The other thing is we're looking really at social emotional learning, pillar one of our strategic plan, and there are some really good products out there, low cost, to bring into our district that will help us with social emotional learning. From K to 12, we met two college kids that are graduating that are their own business. It's great to help new students come on board. Had a great conversation with them about their product, that they're willing to bargain with us to make it work for our district. So those were the takeaways for us. We also spoke to our law firm that it was very useful to us over the course of last year, and just networked with other professionals. I know Mr. Small was talking about some regional stuff, and I'll let him talk about some of the things that he experiences with his regional committee.
Oh, sure. And I was able to attend a few of the classes, if you will. One was very interesting, relationship to school busing. And part of the problem that's happening across the state, and I believe we have the same problem here last time with our contract, there's no competition. You end up receiving one bid, and either you take it or you don't, type of thing. So that's one of the major issues affecting transportation, and especially regional transportation, where we have such an amount at stake. I know I did have a discussion informally with Jeff and George, and it might be something to look into, that we purchase our own buses and run it ourselves. I know in further conversation with a few people, South Shore Votech, they own their buses. They use people that work in their school to drive the buses, and once they get there in the morning, kids get off, they report to work. You know, I don't know that we'd ever do something like that, but I think it would be something worthwhile to take a look at and to explore every avenue as to what's going to be the best for us. as far as that goes. Attended another conference that didn't go as well. It was on finance and what's going on with the state and with finance. And I did rather loudly voice my opinion that the Commonwealth is not fully funding us for regional transportation as they should. I know in the FY18 supplemental budget that was supposed to be a handshake, a wink, and a signature out of Ways and Means. Not having that was $116,000 out of our budget that we could have realized in additional funds. They're up to about 80% in funding for regional transportation. The statute reads that they shall fully fund it. The state auditor agrees with us, according to Suzanne Bump's office, and I did have a chance to talk to one of her folks. As he said, I hear you, I agree with you, I just wish I had a checkbook. And that's a direct quote. So we're still looking around to see what we can do. There is a group of us that have become active on Facebook, of all places, support Mass regional schools. And we held our own impromptu meeting in the lobby. And as one gentleman said, what started off with 5 or 6 of us quickly grew to probably about 20 of us. And we spoke about how we could advocate for our districts and advocate for ourselves in trying to fully make change. You know, one thing that we're in conversation with, and Jeff and George were gracious enough to allow me to extend the carrot, so to speak. Perhaps sometime in January, get a group of regional school representatives. Let's sit in a conference room or sit in a small lecture hall, or, you know, hey, if we can get enough people, let's fill the pack. And go over what our particular issues are, try and get our local state reps, state senators, and whoever else we can get to come down and hear our plight, and then roll up our sleeves and realistically discuss a plan that can solve some of the funding issues that we face. You know, it's a gripe that we all seem to have. That and going around talking to some of the vendors, and I don't know if the gentleman from ClearGov ever got to you?
We have a conference call on Monday.
You know, that's one company that they provide a tremendous amount of information that they pull from DESE and other sources, and you can look at your town all on one web page, and it drill down, and just to help with decision making and to help and see, you know, how you stack up against other towns, how you stack up, you know, in all different areas, so that you know, decisions can be made more properly, perhaps. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of that conference. A lot of the same classes were there this year that have been there for the past 4 or 5 years. And I'll just, I'll leave it at that for right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
I passed out to you folks, and Bob, if you share with Mr. Scriven, a draft of the element safety presentation. So in October, Kevin Harrington and I went to an active shooter training symposium at Stonehill. And I asked Kevin to put something together for elementary kids. So Kevin put together this draft, which is now in the hands of the elementary principals. Kevin is looking at this through the lens of a school resource officer, DARE officer, and I wanted some input from our school principals to make sure that it was adequate for our pre-K to 5 students. So what you have in front of you is something that we're looking at with my goal to present the formal piece to school committee in December, and then have a parent night. So parents can see this before their kids do, ask some questions of us, and then present this January, February to our elementary students. Something from Pillar 3 on our strategic plan of safety security, something that we've talked about last year after the Parkland shooting when we had the conference or the parent night in the small lecture hall, that parents want to know what's being sent to their students or what's being talked about for safety, security with their students. So this is one piece of it, the elementary piece. The other piece for that parent night that we'll put out is our common language of lockdown, stay put, and shelter in place. That's not in your packet. This is simply the elementary piece of it, but we'll add that to all of our parents so that everybody in the district knows common language to make sure that when their students go home and they say, Mom and Dad, we had to stay put today, Mom and Dad don't think active shooter right away. They think maybe kid threw up in the hallway. So something like that. But right now, our parents don't know that. So when we had to stay put for a medical issue last week at Indian Head, we made sure that parents from Indian Head knew that there was a stay put. But if little Johnny came home and said, look, we had to stay put today, Mom and Dad might get a little anxious about what was happening in their school. So we're going to put out as much information on our common language for safety, security as we can. Again, this is a really rough draft, just an idea for you folks to know what's going on behind the scenes. I want to thank Kevin Harrington for doing this on his own. And then Kevin and Officer Frazier will do this along with myself for parents come January once it's approved. Any questions on that?
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, just one. I know it's just a draft, but the test, is that an actual, gonna try something?
And see, that's what I don't know what Kevin has for that, and that's
Right.
one of the questions Karen
Only
Downey
because
said,
that
is, what
comment-
does this mean? And there's a couple of language and grammatical things that he
Yep.
says, oh, see the next page, and there's not. So I'm gonna have our professionals tidy it up for him, and so they're not looking through the law enforcement lens, and then get it out for you folks.
I always ask because of that meeting you had last year, there were some anxious parents there, so.
We're gonna try to make sure that.
One wanted one way,
Less
the other
anxiety.
wanted the other.
You know, I was going to bring that up too. One parent said, I told my children to run.
Right.
The other parent said, you want to listen to the teacher. I think we were all at that night. Fred?
And just sort of in the same, more of a comment than a question. I think it's fantastic for children to be on the same page as each other, their teacher, and their parents. I would think that it could be a wonderful thing to have, not one parents' night, but to put the parents through the actual training that their child is going to be receiving. Just as much as we can do with the community. And also to Officer Frazier and Kevin Harrington, they're fantastic. We're very, very fortunate to have such dedicated guys.
And I'll reiterate that. Last
From our
night,
police
a
chief.
little off topic, but we had police and fire here at our CPAC meeting, talking about our special education students, and the chiefs were here representing police and fire and answered a lot of the questions that our special education parents have for not in school, but at home. And the fear of that, their child who is a runner, what can the police and fire do? Or their daughter that has seizures. And it was a great dialogue, and I appreciate the partnership from both Whitman PD and Fire and Hanson PD and Fire, because it's a constant dialogue about not only kids keeping safe in school, but in our community, and making it a real team effort and a community effort. So I really appreciate the relationship we have with those folks. They work really well for us and work very hard for us.
Well, Jeff, they might want to think about, if you read the paper as of yesterday, the young girl that didn't get kidnapped because the parents had a password.
Right.
Somebody pulled up and said, hey, your mom said I'm picking you up, and the kid said, what's the password?
Well, it was interesting on that topic, because we were talking about keeping kids safe, and one of the moms has a runner, and Lieutenant Casey actually said, why don't you put a bracelet on, a color of the day, so that if that student does run, and you say he's wearing a blue bracelet, that it's easily identifiable, because in a high-stress situation, police are asking, what was he wearing? And as a parent, you don't know what your kid's wearing when he took off. So the blue bracelet was something as an indicator of color of the day, instead of a password, color of the day, so that you can notify. So again, that dialogue to the parents from the chiefs was very appreciated, and by them and by me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask Christine to come up and present our certified E&D, and then bounce on to the 2019 budget.
Okay, in your packet, you should have received, well, actually, in September, you all should have received an email that actually gave you the total number of the E&D that was certified at the end of June. $961,237 is what we currently have in our excess and deficiency
959,
961.
961, 237.
okay.
And also in your packet, there's a slide here that explains how the state got to that number. So last year, 2017, we were certified at 936,761. So the activity in 18, the prior year encumbrances of $19,227 that we encumbered from 17 into 18 was not used. Either the goods or the services were no longer available, or the goods or services did not come in a timely manner. The next one is in 18, 135,552 is the expenditures that were not used out of last year's budget. The unanticipated revenue was 325,387, which was, we got more money in interest, we got more money in Medicaid, we had a little more money in charter school, a little more money in transportation, and actually the homeless, we got two years of payments in 1 year, so that was up a little bit too. So that was why that was up 325,387. Last spring, you voted 450,000 to take out to balance this year's budget. 2018, we had DOR adjustments of $2,625. That reverts right back to E&D the next year. And in 18, we had DOR adjustments of $8,315. So the actual net activity for 18 was $24,476, which leaves the certification balance at $961,237.
Anyone have any questions? Fred?
If you could break down on the unanticipated monies,
Sure, I have it right.
McKinney-Vento,
Okay, so Medicaid, we got an additional 75,000. Charter school reimbursement, we got an additional $62,064. Transportation, we got an additional $97,833. Homeless transportation was $34,062. But like I had alluded to already, that was actually we got 34,062 more than we anticipated because we got 2 payments in 1 year. And then the interest income was $55,589.
on the McKinney-Vento, we received 2 payments.
Correct.
So that would be FY 18 and FY 19?
Nope, FY 17 and FY 18.
17 and 18, okay.
Because the 17 one we got in July, they were late with the payment, and then in 18, they were early with the payment in June.
Okay. So we'll still see a payment for FY 19?
Hopefully, yes.
Anyone else? You want to vote this, correct?
No, you don't need to, I mean, you can if you want, but it's certified by the Department of Revenue. so-
Certified anyways.
Okay.
See how that is in February.
Any more questions on the E&D?
Vendor contracts?
We can go to that next. I was going to go to the budget report for 19.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so the handouts that Michelle gave you this evening are the year-to-date budget reports. The one-pager is the year-to-date revenue. In the first column, you'll see what we budget or anticipate for revenue. The second column is the estimated revenue adjustment, which if you recall back in August, we certified the actual budget for 19 because the governor's budget didn't come out until July, and those are the adjustments that you voted on in August. So then the third one would be, the third column shows you the revised estimated revenue. The fourth column shows you what we've actually taken in, and then the last column shows the remaining balance of what we anticipate bringing in before the end of 2019.
Anyone have any questions for Christine? Take a minute and look it over.
Yeah, 1 second.
And the big report's the expense report. I just want to bring your attention to a couple of things. So on the year-to-date expense report, it's the same. It shows you the first column is the original appropriation, if we had any transfers or adjustment, the revised budget, what we've actually spent to date, any encumbrances, which is purchase orders that have been placed, but we haven't received the goods or we haven't paid the invoice yet. And then the last column is the available budget. And you'll notice that McQuan is not in here, so it's a little bit shorter document. But I just wanted to bring to your attention on page 9, where my concerns are to date are with special education, as they were last year. It just seems to be earlier this year, with their contracted services, their transportation, their out-of-district placement, and the other one is, that's already over, is the McKinney-Vento, the homeless transportation. My concern is that we're already in the hole by $2,950 there as well. That's the only thing that I'm concerned with right now. The rest is pretty status quo. Anyone have any questions?
Are we expecting reimbursements for that at all?
Pardon me?
Are we expecting reimbursements for that, for the McKinney-Vento one?
We'll probably, that's what I just spoke to, a little, we might get 30%, I think we got
That's what I was looking for.
32%.
Okay,
So,
okay.
but sometimes it comes the year after. In 18, we got it in June, in 17, we got it in July.
Right,
So-
it's always moving.
Oh.
Okay.
Anyone else, Fred?
We're using FY18 money for sped. We always 1 year behind?
Oh, for circuit breaker?
Yeah.
Well, last year, we were in the hole over $450,000. So in order to balance last year's budget, we had to use some of the current circuit breaker that came in. So right now, circuit breaker, the balance is close to 200,000, which typically that would have been 650,000, but we had to use 450,000 of that to balance 18's budget, because sped was over by close to 450,000. So, and I anticipate this year we're going to get more circuit breaker in, not because it went up 0.5%, but because we spent so much money last year. So it's based on the reimbursable. So I'm anticipating about 900, 950, but I want to try to avoid using all of that to balance this year's, to use this year's budget, because we want to try to build that back up. Because now we're not a year behind. We're about a third of the way a year behind. But that's what that money is there for.
If I might add, on special education, especially out of district right now, we're really looking at bringing program in. So we might be spending money in next year's budget to make money by keeping our kids here. We've consulted our attorney. Our attorney has made a strong recommendation for us to build a couple of programs for our middle school kids, language-based, that we're putting out right now at a real expense, that if we could add a couple of teachers and a couple of paraprofessionals with some support, we could save our district money in the future. So that's one of the directives that we've talked to Lauren about. She's looking at multiple programs, so that next year we might have a middle school program. We already have a high school program, and then bringing it back to the elementary program, because that's where a lot of our students right now are coming through the process with language-based disabilities, and we don't have the services in school, in our district right now. So we're putting them out, and it's an expense to our district and our taxpayers. So we're really looking at how we can be more effective and efficient internally, because our kids want to stay here, and we want to keep them here, but we don't have the programs that can help them. And that doesn't mean that once they're out of district, they're out of district for forever, but right now we can't service or meet their needs.
I think anything that we can do for inclusion, and, it's nice that we save money too, but
Sure.
keep our kids.
We want to
here.
keep our kids here, but that's why I'm saying, we might be coming in our next budget saying, we're adding some staff, and you might question, why are you adding staff? It's for those programs that we can bring kids back, and we won't be pushing kids out. And I believe before, well, actually, it was in George's building, we did have some special education programs that we would tuition students in. And that was another caveat, that some of the other districts don't have the programs that we're talking about right now. That could be another area that could offset some of our expenses.
We've done that previously, run some
Correct.
programs and took students
Correct.
that were closer to us and come out making money.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not a for-profit, it's to, to make sure that we have our programs. But I'd rather keep our kids, like you said, Mr. Small, keep our kids here.
Great idea. Any other questions for Christine?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is I actually sent a memo to Jeff.
It's in your original packet.
It's the original packet, right? Recommending that contract extensions, when we put out First Student, which is our transportation, and when we put out SJ, which is our custodial contract, and Collegiate Press, which is our copy center here, when we put it out to bid, they gave back numbers for optional year 4 and 5 for both student transportation and for the custodial service, and for Collegiate Press for year 4, 5, and 6. So in your packet, you can see that for first student transportation for next year's budget, there'd be an increase of $60,128. And then in year 2021, it would be an increase of $41,630, which equates to 3.5% and 2.5%. SJ Services contract,
we've got to vote them separately, Christine, so
Okay.
let's just stop right there, please.
okay, fine.
Does everybody understand the bus one for us? It's 3.5% and 2.5%. 3.5 in the first year, 2.5 in the second year, correct?
Correct.
Entertain a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Fred?
When do we have to, what is the time frame for extending these, number one?
Well, I'm bringing you them in November so I can build the budget for 2020, so I know what the numbers will be.
Okay, number two, do we have to agree to do both years, or could we do 1 year at a time?
That's up to the committee, but I would suggest to do 2 years at a time, especially with first student, because like you said earlier, that there's no one else that's going to
Well,
be,
but what if we do a study and we determine that
to buy our own buses?
we can buy our own buses, we can save $100,000 a year, or whatever it is, et cetera, but we're locked into waiting 2 years instead of doing it.
That's up to the committee, but yes.
Are there any fuel escalators or anything else within their contract?
Yes, there is a fuel escalation clause in there. And over the last couple of years, we've actually saved money. I don't have that with me tonight, but I can certainly send that to you, Fred.
I'd like to read the whole contract myself before placing a vote. That's me.
Robbie?
Well, I agree that there isn't a lot to choose from, and even if we wanted to go with our own drivers or anything else, that's 2 years out. There's no way that we could do it financially or hire the people or anything a year from now, so I'm okay with voting for the next 2 years, and if that's the direction you want to go, then you need to start now looking at buying buses, getting people trained, and that kind of stuff. So,
Chris?
Are these increases in the contract already, or are these
No,
what
this is-
we've negotiated?
This is the optional. So when we put it out to bid, we had them give us 3 years with option for 4 and 5.
So
no-
when you say options for 4 and 5, so this is a recent bid, or this is what they bid previously?
This is what they bid previously.
So it's like-
So when it went out to bid 3 years ago, this came back as optional year 4 and year 5.
Got it. So this is what was in the original contract, this is the line that says this is what it would be if we so chose to exercise the
Correct.
option.
I believe you have that in your handout.
Right, but we haven't gone back, so we haven't necessarily gone back to them to try and renegotiate these rates. Not that they necessarily would, but.
They'd probably be higher,
Well,
Fred?
in my
but
opinion.
when do we, okay, it's in writing that we have the right to exercise these options.
Right.
The question is, by what date do we have to exercise the option? And isn't it worth a phone call to say, you know, we're looking into doing our own perhaps, et cetera. Would you consider doing something, you know, that we would lock you in for 2 years? Because if, as you said, we could do it 1 year at a time and not lock ourselves in for the same contractual rate that's already in there.
But if you remember, in year 1, 2, and 3, it went up 4.5, 4.5, and 4.5.
Right, but,
Put it out to bid.
but they've already given us this increased amount.
That's correct, but I'm just saying this is less than the first 3 years for the increase.
Right, but in other words, if we're to say, okay, let's do 2 years, as it states there, we're locking ourselves in through the end of 2021.
And then we
If-
have to rebid it.
Okay, but
Or
if
buy our
we
own.
say we want to do 2020 now, and we'll let you know a year from now about 2021, it's still the same contractual obligation. We're just not tying our hands for that extra year. You know?
Chris?
So I'm just looking at it as, you know, is there any harm in asking? So if we already have the option locked in, you know, make the committee the bad guys and bad girls of, hey, you know, they don't like these rates, what can you do? Worst they say is nothing, and we're right to where we are today. I have no problem with you making us the bad.
I don't have any problem calling them, I just,
That's just, what do we get to lose is my question.
Robbie?
Well, and I was going to say almost exactly what Chris said. I mean, why not, I mean, the price increase would be 6% over the 2 years. Call them, I mean, if we get 5% over the 2 years, great, we save 8%. At least with this, and I don't know what the drop dead dates are that we have to sign by, but call them and say, look, school committee wants a lower percentage, will you, won't you? And if they don't want to, then they don't, we have to come back and decide.
yeah, I can
Well, then
call
what
them
we
and
wanna
then
do.
bring this back to you in
So-
December, so we can put a realistic budget together.
I mean, it can,
I see it.
it's not going to go up higher, so I think you can plug these numbers in conceptually for the
Yep.
budgets for the towns right now.
Yep.
If we come in lower with it, then awesome, that's
Yeah.
savings, but they're not
I
going to
mean, I can make a phone call tomorrow, and they could say they're not gonna budge, or they could say they would.
Because they're not, we don't have to sign anything prior to the next time we meet, right? As far as their contract goes? Okay.
No,
so
I
we
can
got
bring
time
it
then.
back to you in December.
Okay.
If that's what
Can't
the
hurt.
committee
Yeah,
decides.
exactly.
Fred?
I mean, I would think that there would be an incentive for them, perhaps, and I don't know what their structure is, if they're making money, losing money, et cetera, on us, but I would think that there might be an incentive for them to say, okay, well, what if we do this, lock in for 2 years? Because otherwise, we could just lock in for the 1 or 3.5, and then decide a year from now, and it's no skin off our teeth. It works out to be exactly the same.
Right.
But if they want to lock us in for 2, there might be something advantageous to them.
Sure, it's definitely
negotiate a
worth a
little.
phone call, and I can do that, no problem.
Well,
wanna
you've
table
you've
this?
also, I hate to be the devil's advocate, you've also got the other side that say, okay, we'll lock you in for 1.
Right.
If you're only going for 1, we want 5% for the other year.
But they can't, it's already contractual, they gotta give you the 2.5.
Well, I think bargaining wise, we're better off to,
Right.
it's 6% for the 2 years, what can you do? If they give it
Right,
to
yep.
us for 3, 4, or 5, or even 5.5%,
Wanna be-
then great. I think we should do it for the 2 years, like Chris had said, but see if they give us
See
a
if they
lower
can bring
rate.
that to 5% over time.
Explain to them.
Well,
this is-
something,
this is
yeah.
what they know the deal we're
Of
all-
course they
we're-
do.
We're all in. So
Yeah.
I wanna
But
be-
they also know they're the only ones that can service us, too, at this
Fred?
particular
You
time.
know, I just want to be very clear that I'm understanding what you're saying, and we're all on the same page. If we voted right now and said we authorize extending it for 1 year, they can't change anything, and we would have the option a year from now to extend it
I'd
that
have to read,
second?
I'd have to read the contract to say that if that's exactly.
Okay, then I think that's what we need to start off with, is reading the contract.
Right.
Because if there's no detriment to us for saying we would want to do a 1 year at a time, then we're dangling a carrot. You know, and sorry, that's why I thought I was asking before. I just want to make sure we're crystal clear. Could we all get copies of the contract electronically?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, let's,
Motion to
somebody want
table?
to withdraw?
You have to withdraw first.
I'd entertain a motion to table it till.
So moved.
Second.
You want to withdraw your motion and then
Second.
Robbie has to withdraw the second.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to table it.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, okay. The next one, Christine, is the Collegiate Press.
No, SJ Services.
SJ.
Well, we can go to Collegiate Press
I'm
because
just going, go ahead, you can do whatever one you want.
the contract is staying the same for the next 3 years.
That's
No-
easy.
No increase.
I'd entertain a motion to accept Collegiate Press's no increase contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Will
That
they
one's
give us
easy,
a
huh? All
discount?
those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, next one's SJ.
Correct. So for 2020, there'd be a 3% increase, which is 29,000. And then for 2021, there would be a 2% increase of 29,000.
So
That
it's
does not-
29,000 the first year, 29,000 the second.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Discussion, Fred?
Again, same thing. Is it stair-stepped, or do we have to give 2 years?
We have to give 2 years for this.
Okay, so this one is written such
Yes.
as that.
Anyone else? Discussion? Chris?
I would think maybe try the same strategy, just ask the question. I mean, at this point, if we have time, as long as we don't have to vote the option tonight, we're gonna run out of time. They have to appreciate the budget deficits and challenges that we face. Why not just ask the question of, you know, the school committee's pushing back, is there anything you can do with these? That would be my 2 cents.
Fred?
I agree 100% with Chris. Also, where they're on a state bid list, can we look and see what their increases in the state bid list have been over the past 3 years, et cetera? So in other words, for next year, are they going up 3.5% or on the state bid list, or are they only going up 2%? You know, maybe we use that as a theory, maybe we can get something out of them.
I'd entertain him, I mean,
I'll-
I'd like to have somebody withdraw that motion.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Withdraw second.
Entertain a motion to table it,
So moved.
Second.
to December, I'm sorry. Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, great, thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Christine.
So next on your agenda is the math pilot update. George is going to give you an update on what we're doing. Right now, we're piloting 2 elementary math programs. One of the charges that when we came in this year was to make sure we put tools in teachers' hands, especially at the elementary level. The district has really been lacking in giving teacher tools, meaning actual tangible things to our elementary teachers. If we all bought stock in teachers pay teachers, we probably wouldn't be sitting at this table, we'd be down in Aruba somewhere at this point, because a lot of our teachers are supplementing their curriculum with teachers pay teachers. Brian Seelig, the coordinator of math, K-12, has put together these pilot programs. We have different teachers piloting these 2 programs. George is going to give you an update on where we're at with that, because it will be an expenditure in next year's budget once we choose a program.
Yeah, so right now, the reason why we have the pilot is that we had Envision for the last 7 years, and Envision is running out. Our license agreement with Envision, which is our elementary math program, is running out. There is such a thing called Envision 2.0, and that is not one of the ones that we looked at, because truthfully, when you look at all the reviews, the ed reviews on it, it is really not up to snuff. So the 2 that we've chosen, one is called Bridges. It's out of Math Learning Center. That's the name of the company, and their product is called Bridges. The other one is called Curriculum Associates, and it's Ready Math, and there's an iReady diagnostic piece that goes with it. I think this is a unique opportunity to make sure that we can provide, like Jeff said, an anchor by which our teachers can teach from. If you're an elementary school teacher, you prepare all your subjects, except that the district traditionally has not given you the tools by which to teach all of those subjects. Things have been outdated. We've always wanted the human in the classroom over different things budgetarily, and now we're at a point where we can set our stage for the next 6 to 7 years with a program in math that'll provide instruction for every student on a continuum. So it's the same vocabulary that you get in kindergarten will follow you for 7 years. You'll now be going into 8th grade and still have that continuum of knowledge. That is not something that we've had. Bridges and Ready Math are two different kind of platforms. Bridges is a platform that teaches mostly large group with some small group, and it does most of the things that a traditional math program would do except this. It allows children to think algebraically at the very beginning of time, at the very beginning of kindergarten. iReady does the same thing, except iReady has a diagnostic component that you can take. If Mr. Cullity's teaching a 2nd grade, he already has ed assessments built in to the program. So his 24, 25 students will go online, they'll take their ed assessment, and that teacher will have real live data according to the standards that they're going to need to be taught and tested on. And now it's going to say, okay, you're at this level, you're at this level, you're at this level, you're at this level. The beautiful thing about it is it then gives you prescriptive knowledge within the program that you're using already to remediate in some cases or extend in other cases. And this is something that's pretty new in curriculum. This company began as a diagnostic software tool. It then received such success in it and is now coming in with their classroom product and their classroom materials. So, number of teachers at different grade levels in different schools doing it, but it will come down to Bridges, it'll come down to iReady, and then we'll make an informed decision for where we go for the next 6 to 7 years. There's a cost for it. We're looking at leasing, we're looking at 1 year, we're looking at a 3-year cost, a 6-year cost, but there will be a cost that's with it. But that's where we're at right now in the training. A lot of PD that'll go along with it, but our goal is to provide a robust program for math so that as we then begin looking at what ELA needs are, our continuing science needs and costs, and our new social studies frameworks that have come out, K to 8, we can then start to say, we can then start to put the tools in the teacher's hands so they can best teach our students. Any questions? I try to answer them.
Chris?
What's your timeline? Just trying to.
Our timeline is for.
Make the decision prior to budget, or?
Yeah, we're going to make the decision prior to budget, and then we're going to make sure that we are ready to implement, contract signed, ready to implement over the summer with the PD that's going to be there for the deliverables to begin next school year, because we're out.
So I know this came up at parent-teacher conferences with my
Sure.
daughter, she's going through one, and I don't even remember which one it was, but I know what was really neat about it was that there were some things that she could do at home.
Yep.
And the tool would kind of redirect her to, okay.
Absolutely. So she must be piloting the Ready Math. Yeah, yeah.
But it was really good because, and even the teacher did a good job of explaining to us, because we were like, what is this stuff? We haven't even seen it. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine. The tool is challenging her with
Right.
just stuff that she should have. So it was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are
It's different.
exploring that area.
Yeah, and that's a credit to Brian Seelig. Both of these programs look at math, not necessarily from just the building block basis of, I need to learn just the addition to get to the multiplication to get to the next step. It's, I need to look at math holistically to see how I can get answers to different problems. So it's moving into, there are multiple ways to answer the same problem, as opposed to, nope, there's only 4 times 5 equals 20. So it's a little bit like that. Right.
The capital costs, will they let us split that up?
That's what we're searching for. One will allow a little bit more. The first year cost would always be more because you have some manipulatives and you have some professional development. But now we're starting to work on, if this is the successful one, how far out can we stretch those payments? There's a little hesitation, obviously, to go to the 7-year window of it, but that's what we're actively going past our general local rep to see who's next on the food chain, so we can go from there.
So it's over a 5-year useful life?
The Ready Math piece changes as So the Bridges is a little more traditional in the sense of purchasing a curriculum, where, yes, there would be a shelf life of 5 years. The Ready Math component has the ability to update itself throughout the life of your contract that you'd have it with.
I'm just wondering if it's a capital item and if we even want to go there.
I'm not sure yet.
That's out of
I'll
my
look at
wheelhouse,
the
yeah.
cost there, but I want to make sure that it's sustainable within our own budget instead of putting it out to the towns, since it's content-based and curriculum-based. Any other questions on that? It seems like teachers are really working hard with it, too. I think there's a flavor for one over the other at this point. In September, I think it was a toss-up, but I think it's, and I'm not going to disclose which the flavor is yet, but I think it's a matter of what we want for our students to be prepared for the new high-stakes testing that George is going to talk about next, and our standards that are continuously changing within the Commonwealth. So on that note, MCAS and results came out, and George is going to speak to how we did and the process of how the state's sending out data to parents.
All right, so for years, for the last 15 years, we've done an MCAS update at a meeting like this in every type of fashion you could do. We had individual principals, we had individual teachers, we had curriculum coordinators, we had fancy graphs in gold if you were good, we had fancy graphs that weren't in gold if you weren't good. We did a lot of different things. I don't have that for you. But what I'd like to tell you is that the DESE has now changed not only the tests that they give to students, but the accountability system that they're now, for students, for schools, for teachers, and for districts themselves. So now we are in the new accountability parameters for these assessments that your students have taken from grades 3 to 8. The high school was the last year of the MCAS that came in. That's also changing. Everything now is going to be computer-based, and now we have the next generation MCAS scores. If you remember to the legacy or the old MCAS scores, students received advanced, proficient, needs improvement, or warning/failure. That has all changed. Now it's called exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, or not meeting expectations. And the key that I think everybody needs to realize is that is not an apples for apples switch, and we just change names. The test that students take right now is much more rigorous as far as the standards for reaching on the MCAS scores. It is much more difficult, and they made it that way for certain factors. They valued readiness for the next grade level and consistent expectations across grades. What does that all mean? It means that no longer apples for apples. So what does that mean for the state and Whitman Hanson? The accountability system tests and scores districts with their rating on different things now. It's now based on student achievement. It's now based on student growth percentiles. It's now based on high school completion rates. It's now based on English proficiency, chronic absenteeism, and advanced coursework. So what they're trying to do is take a whole look for the district from the time you started testing grade 3 to the time you leave that testing scenario, currently still in 10th grade. And they put all of these factors together. Right now, the state can look at every single teacher, every single student, and every single time a teacher and a student interface at a data point. They can now give you reports on these things. There are 84,000 data points in a school year, average school year, between teacher and student. And now they have reports on this. This new accountability system designates schools as not requiring assistance or intervention, requiring assistance or intervention, insufficient data. That's how they register. For this past school year, Whitman Hanson was one of the 74% of school districts in Massachusetts not requiring assistance or intervention. We're good. We're good. For the district itself, so that was for schools, excuse me, I don't want to misspeak. 74% of our schools, of the schools in Massachusetts, the individual schools, were not requiring assistance or intervention, and that was Whitman Hanson. We were also part of the 90% not requiring assistance or intervention for the district itself. So that's how they designated it. So we're like 90% of the districts, we don't need any help, focused help from the state. We are like 74% of the schools, when you just look at our individual schools, not requiring assistance. When you talk about, there's a further one, that Whitman Hanson was was part of 53% of the schools in Massachusetts, also in partially meeting every single target for every single student and type of student group that was tested. So 53% are categorized as partially meeting targets. Whitman Hanson was in that category. That is the second subset category. The highest is meeting targets, and there were 31% of schools in the district, in the state, meeting targets. So where are we? We're like our peers. For 15 years, after giving you every single chart and every single presentation that we had, we are in the middle. When you look at our specific tests and the graphs and what they show for the science, for the English, and for the math, we are still in the middle. Of note, a couple of things I wanted to let you know. In grade 10, that's the closest we are aligned with our peers across the state in grade 10 for English, for math, and for science. Now remember, that was the old MCAS. When we go to grade 8, generalities, of course, I'm making, is that most students fall into the meeting and partially meeting standards. Of note, though, in this one, is that we did have less failure rates than the state. Conversely, we had less advanced rates than the state. So basically, we were just in the middle. If you look at grade 5, again, we mirror the state in all three aspects of it. So that leads to then, how do you ever get past the middle? And I think that's one of the things we're trying to focus on, is that we shouldn't be looking so much on what the state tests you on, but we need to start looking at what are the tools we're providing our educators in order to prepare students to then meet with success, not only on these tests, but then out there in the world. So our focus is on learning and teaching the standards. Because sometimes we get away from that. Any program that we get, we have to vet and make sure it's based on the standards. But we also have to clearly make sure that we're giving our kids the playbook in which they're going to have an assessment on. So we have to focus on those standards. If we focus on those standards, it will equal success. And then we also need to embrace and change the lives of our elementary teachers. The students we teach aren't the same. The things that they're being tested on aren't the same. So we have to make sure that we're doing a good job from the school department and from the school community, that we are making sure that our teachers have the best tools they can to affect the lives of our students. That's not only purely academic. That's also from a social emotional standpoint, because you cannot expect test results to be well if we're not caring for the needs of the whole child. So when we talk about budget, when we talk about things like Excel and the social emotional learning network that we're on, we have to make sure if students are ready to learn from a mental health perspective, we then have to make sure we have the academic pieces in charge so that they can learn and prosper and foster. So that's our focus: standards, tools, and then the social emotional aspect, so that when we take these tests, we can try to move from the middle. That's what I have.
Any questions for George?
One of the things we learned from all this data, so if you want to come in and look at data.
Oh, if you ever want to, if you have nothing to do, like nothing to do, grass is cut, like leaves are picked up, and you want to sit with me and go over the 6.04 reports from Edwin Analytics, it is pretty fascinating in a weird way, but it is fascinating and you will learn a lot.
We can drill down to the student experience, and we've been able to find out some things around attendance, teacher attendance, how we treat our ELL students, how they experience the day, based upon those 84,000 data points that we have within our school. So we're drilling it down to see where we can make the most effective change, and just having conversations about that. Who are we putting in front of students? Are they teachers that are highly regarded teachers? Are they brand new teachers? Are they senior teachers? That's all being vetted by the Commonwealth, by DESE right now. So we're drilling down the data. So we just wanted to give you a brief overview of that instead of all the charts. We're, as we have said as principals here, we're smack in the middle. What we're trying to do is change that by putting the tools, K-8 especially, the tools in the teacher's hands, and then the resources to assist and social emotional, because it's an ever-growing issue that we have within our schools. And we're seeing it now that we're district-wide, the K-5 experience and what some of the teachers and some of the social emotional issues that our younger students are having are pretty significant, and we need to put some interventions in to make them successful if we're treating all kids and being fully inclusive. Thank you, George.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Could you speak to some of the more informative data points that could be used in? Well, you mentioned like absences.
Yep.
And things like that. Like, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of.
So for what example, so now what happens in the accountability system, as the best that I can understand it, is that each school are given certain quality points that they can earn. For example, based on chronic absenteeism. So you might have a possible 10 points you can earn in chronic absenteeism, and you earn those points based on the lower the definition of absenteeism it is. So we had some students, and they don't necessarily care if you're not in school for health-related reasons. It's just if you're in school or not. So they try to make sure that that's one of them. Chronic absenteeism is the score based on just if you're there or not. Another one is advanced coursework. So the DESE is really interested in how high schools label advanced coursework. And advanced coursework is basically anything over a college prep or your, however you want to call it, not a basic, not a standard, but more an advanced, an AP, something of that nature, you get advanced points for. However, because they can take so many data points, you can lose points if you incorrectly don't list your courses the right way. For example, I might say that you have an honors physics class, but when I do my matrix to build that section, if I don't check that box, then you don't have an advanced class. Doesn't matter what you call it, doesn't matter what you sent to Harvard, doesn't matter any of that, you don't have it. So there are all these stopgaps or checks that the state is putting in for that. And those are some of the pieces that you have it. We also have issues now when you take a teacher who's certified, let's say, in art. That teacher might also teach a digital photography class. That teacher might also teach a ceramics class. But when you label him and code that class, if you're not coding that class correctly, you're not getting credit from the state in things like advanced coursework, even for art, because you only coded it as maybe drawing one. So there's all these pieces that are now happening where you have to make sure that every piece of data in is reflective in how the data that puts out and is now going into your grading system. You know, it's math beyond I know, but I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, George, anything that's data-driven is only as good as the data that's put in correctly.
You are correct.
At the end of I mean, remember when we did the radar thing,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
last Masco thing? The gentleman get up and talked about it, it's another data-driven survey.
Yeah.
And he alluded to the fact that he might skewer his data.
Right.
And what good is the survey if you don't tell exactly what it is?
Right.
Data-driven surveys only come out with the correct data if you correctly install it. So it's kind of weird. Anyone else? Thank you.
And lastly, I briefed the Facilities Subcommittee on the entrance regarding the athletic entrance and the performing arts entrance. You notice a little bit of construction there. This came about for some safety security reasons. We're able to, so what it is for the committee is we're extending out the athletic director's office and where the snack shack or the ticket office was, to make it more condensed. If you walk in the athletic office, and I'm using my hands, there were little cadenzas here, kids could hang out here. We're streamlining it so it's a narrow pathway through, that we can also put a security officer there if we need to lock that part of the facility down. Mr. Sandlin made a comment that when we outsource, or the Brockton School of Nurses come through here, instead of coming through the main hallway or somebody holding the door over here, we can add a person to keep those doors locked, and they can add security to that. I also mentioned when we added the preschool here, we lost some storage space, we lost some classroom space, which was used actually for athletic storage. We're going to be able to put some athletic storage in that new area so that the athletic department has adequate storage. And the athletic department is also purchasing a flat screen, touch screen monitor that is updated virtue of the web, so that if anybody comes in, they can touch the screen, they can find what athletic events, the schedules that are there. When the Athletic Hall of Fame comes up, those things will be there. It'll be an interactive board. So just as you come in to see our winter seasons are starting in a couple of weeks, when you come in there, you're gonna see that presentation, just so that you're not caught off guard.
Questions, anyone? Thank you. Okay, new business. Dr. Jones has been sitting here very patiently. He wants to discuss the Loop and the Panther Red Trust fundraiser.
Thank you for the time. I'm a patient guy. I'm seeking approval, or I'm seeking to put forward a request to the board. I kind of know where I want to go, but it's kind of a hybrid deal. So the Panther Education Trust, otherwise known as PET, came to me with a fundraiser idea. And their idea is to hold a raffle at the beginning of each year, and the grand prize of that raffle would be to name the inner loop after one of three things: either the person that wins the grand prize, their family name, or a prominent member in the community. And they would want to do that for a year as the grand prize of the raffle, and then the following year they would take, at the end of that year, they'd take the sign down, present it to the person, and then they'd hold that raffle again for a yearly fundraiser. It's important for a couple of reasons. One, as many of you probably know, with the weather, they lost Truck or Treat this year, and funds are tight. And they actually sent out an email to a lot of the clubs that they help fund for student activities that funds are tight and they can only award so much this year per club, which was less than they're able to do because of the stretching out of their funds. Really good group, do a lot of good for students and help out. My opinion at looking at this, and this is what I seek approval for, is I see it as a fundraiser, but I'm also aware of the school committee policy FF where if you want to name any facility or part thereof, the school committee needs to form a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee has to review the proposal and then give it to the school committee for a unanimous vote. So if it's seen as naming a part of the facility, then I guess you'd have to go that route, and that's the part where I'm putting a request in, where I'd like to have the subcommittee formed or have the school committee form that subcommittee so we could move forward with it. If it's not, and it's a fundraiser, which seems to be my opinion of it, but I know it rubs up against that line close enough, it would be a simple approval of the school committee to say, yes, go ahead and hold that raffle and use it as a fundraiser. And it would be an annual piece. To kick it off and to build up some momentum to it and get word of mouth going so it is a profitable fundraiser, for the rest of the year, they would name it the Panther Education Trust Circle, just to show people where that sign would be. Earning Facilities would put that sign up, so it would be completely in-house what we did. And they came up with that idea because of the Spirit Rock that's been painted out front. They think it would go good with the Spirit Rock and kind of dress up that inner loop even more. So questions?
Does anyone have any questions? I mean, I'm tempted to entertain a motion and then go into discussion, but it does border kind of in an area, but it is a fundraiser that's going year to year. So it kind of changes it, and the school committee could vote year to year to change it if they didn't.
First, to go into discussion, but are you talking perhaps a street sign or just a regular sign?
I mean, that could be negotiable. We were talking street sign. When they first approached me, they said we could have the highway department come in and put a sign in, and they'd want to contact them as soon as possible. And then I spoke to Ernie, and Ernie said, no, that's something we would handle. So we're looking at more signage like you would typically see around here that would blend into the environment. We're not looking at something that would stand out like a green highway sign. We're looking at something that would look good with the front of the school and be I don't know what dimension you're considering a sign versus a street sign. I'm thinking it wouldn't be your narrow, regular like Mariner's Way. It would be more of a square, I'm thinking almost fatter rectangle, because you'd have to put something on there. If you think about what Panther Education Trust Circle would take up, you're probably thinking 2 lines, you're probably thinking that big by that wide.
In effect, you'd be honoring the winner of a raffle, not naming a circle. You know, in effect.
Correct.
You know, based on that theory, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Panther Ed Trust to be able to do so.
Someone like to second that?
Second.
It might be like the middle
Maybe a little wider than that, but
But still,
like the no pet sign.
Huh? It's not naming
They
it,
have to play devil's
it's the winner of a raffle.
And who second it, so we can discuss?
Yeah, keep discussing, go ahead, Dan.
Just being devil's advocate, I understand, it's good to raise the money and all, but where would it stop if we have where we want to do other fundraising and rename something?
Well-
That's where that gray line comes into effect.
I'm just gonna give you a little history, Fred, and then I'll go back to you. We had a very similar request from the athletic director to name the street out in front of the football field. I forget whether it was Bob Tian Way or Bob Bancroft Way.
I don't remember.
It was one of the
It was
two.
one of the two.
And the discussion came up, in fact, I think it was before Bob Rogers was our athletic director, I think it was Mr. Daly. And they were a little hesitant to get to any permanent names, so the discussion was, we'll put up a board and honor whoever comes year to year. They didn't want to name the street, that's sort of the history, and then it kind of just went away. It didn't happen, it wasn't brought back to the committee. It was one of those things that just kind of went away, that's kind of the history. And I know that was way before you were here. So that kind of answers what you're saying, Dan. What do we, you're getting into an area that you could be naming every marker out there.
I think there'd be two important differences. Possibly this would be an annual thing that changed with a raffle each year, so it would be advertised each year. Everybody would get a crack at it, so to speak. And the safeguard would be that the high school principal and the superintendent of the district would have to approve the name. So it would have to come out of those three areas. It would either have to be the person that won, so it could be, and I have a couple notes here. It could be Chris Jones' Way. It could be, oh, wait, before you laugh. It could be after the person's family name. Say a student want to put their family name up. So it could be the Simonac Family Circle. Or, a member of the school committee with that person's permission. So, Dempsey Square or something like that. And then it would have to be approved by myself and the superintendent or the high school principal in the district superintendent. So it's almost, the part that pulls me away from the policy piece is the idea that it's not permanent. It's something that changes each time, as opposed to naming the front entrance or naming a street.
How about if we put in the caveat that we do it for the first year and see how it goes and revote it?
Sure.
That might help some people, Fred.
I think Conley does something similar.
Frank Kenny Way, I think, is,
But that's set.
That's set.
I mean, that's been there for,
that was a long, long time ago.
But, we're talking something that's gonna change every year. Heck, the money goes to a great cause, goes right
Oh.
back to our students. I'd be all for entertaining any other group that, donates as heavily to our students, coming up with a different fundraising idea for out there. They want to name a rock or something.
Fundraisers are good. Chris?
Yeah,
I
but
think
that's,
it's a
that's,
fantastic idea, and I applaud the creativity from all those that participated. I think these are the type of things, given where we're at, we're just gonna have to probably do more of, so.
like I said, it's fundraising, but I just want to make sure it doesn't, like you just said, naming a rock, naming this, all of a sudden we're doing
Yeah, but-
fundraising just to give out names.
But what's the harm in naming a rock if all the money goes back to our
It's like
kids
we're
and
an
enhances their education?
Then we're getting into like we're advertising everything.
Then let's advertise. Put Chico's bail bonds on the back of the baseball. If that's gonna give a kid a better education and help their
All right.
educational opportunities, I'd be all for that.
and just for
Fred,
clarity's
The
sake.
only difference is I agree with Jeff and Chris, because somebody's all want to name that dead man's curve.
Right.
Well, yeah, but they do hold editorial responsibility.
right, correct, right.
Did you say rights or responsibility?
So, having said that, does anyone have anything else? I have a motion and a second to it.
I did.
And just for clarity's purpose, this first year, also including the idea that Pet would name the circle this year, the Panther Education Trust Circle, for the rest of this year, and put that sign up to kind of help boost, just to be clear, so I don't walk
Just
out of
general
here,
awareness.
whatever you vote and say, okay, and they say, well, can we name it, and I'm not clear.
Wait, okay. Everybody good with that motion?
Yep.
Any further discussion? So if we just read the motion, Michelle, it is to, for the remainder,
PET annual fundraiser for the Luke name the high school, temporary not permanent, beginning with anti-regressive. Something like that.
everybody understand that? Everybody's good with that motion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay, equipment purchase proposal. If you look back into the months and months previous, we talked about, we've been leasing a Cat front-end loader for quite a while. So we talked about having Christine get a price from Milton Cat on buying it versus leasing it. I think we've been leasing it for 3 years. And the leasing money, as you know, just goes away. At the end, we own nothing versus buying it. So in your, the handout for this evening, Christine has a price. You want to get up and explain it, Christine?
So off the state bid list, the list price is $141,800. But off the state contract for school districts, the total price is $92,900. The second page will show you that if we lease this over a 5-year period, the annual payment would be $21,735.37. And as Bob had just mentioned, we have been leasing this piece of equipment for the last 3 years to the tune of $18,000 a year. So after 5 years, we would own this piece of equipment, and Bob could probably speak better to how, I mean, it's gonna last forever, 30 years or so, right?
Well, the difference is it's short, it's $3,000 less a year to lease it, but we own nothing at the end. If we buy it, a Cat front-end loader is good for 25, 30 years. So, I mean, after you
I'll
own
give
it.
you 20.
What?
Municipal work, I'll give you 20. You're not gonna get 25.
The school's a little bit different though, Robbie, than the town. It's
I'll
not
give
out
you-
on the street.
I'll give you 20.
Okay, so say 20 years, so you're getting 15 years for free. Or close to for free. That's the difference. This way, we're paying a little bit less to lease it, but we own nothing. Fred?
We already have this money encumbered within our budget toward the rental. Or the-
Correct.
About $3 grand more a year.
Okay, and just if I'm reading this, what about maintenance? I see that insurance is included. And I'd like to know what liability limits they're including, and will that affect our current insurance policies?
I actually reached out to our insurance broker, but she's on vacation, she wasn't able to get back to me today to see how that would affect. I know that when we rent it, it doesn't affect, we have a rider for renting equipment, but it's all included in our liability policy. So what I asked her for today was a quote to what it would cost us if we own this to insure it.
Okay, but it says payment with insurance on their proposal.
I'm looking at the one without insurance because I believe that they could probably insure it for less than that. That's what I was waiting for. That's why on my copy, I just highlighted the actual payment without the insurance. So when I find out what the insurance is gonna cost us through our broker now, which it's probably gonna be less than what this is, because we already have a blanket big policy with them already, so.
I believe the payment, Fred, with insurance, because I looked into leasing one, buying one. If you have a loan, obviously, it's a fire, theft, and collision type policy if a machine gets wrecked or total. I don't think you get any liability with that. That would probably fall under what we have here, or an umbrella policy.
Right, and that's why I asked Amy at Han and Ryan to give me a quote so I could compare that to this.
We don't have that now. We can table this till next month.
Yeah, I don't have that. She's been on vacation. I've been emailing her, and she didn't have an away message. I finally called, and she's out of the office until next week.
I'd entertain a motion to table this till we have that figure.
So moved.
Second? I'm sorry I didn't hear you. Any more discussion, Robbie?
So what is it you're looking for that we wouldn't have covered under vehicles that we already own?
Well, it might be cheaper through our own carrier
Okay.
for that type of policy.
right.
That's what
No,
I'm
I
saying.
agree. Okay.
So
No, I
that'd
agree.
lower the cost and might bring it
Gotcha.
Well,
more into, line. That's what I'm looking.
Okay.
At the same,
Yeah, yeah, so basically, we lease for 5 years, and it would come out to be 15,000 more if we did it this way for 5 years.
Yeah, we
So
don't,
year 6, we'll be
we own it.
chunking it down
there'll be
to,
no payment.
yes,
Right.
we'll be saving 75,000 after 5 years, so.
Right, exactly. Fred?
could we possibly also get a maintenance schedule at how many hour intervals? What needs to be done and who will be performing it, so we can know what
Why don't
our
we
costs
just-
are?
I was gonna say, why don't we just find out what it's gonna cost?
Ask Kat that.
That'll make it easier.
Christine?
I'm just reading the front here because it says, 3-year, 1,000-hour full warranty, delivery, training, and then all the gadgets that comes with it, but it's a 3-year full warranty. So that answers part of your question.
Well, full warranty, but then you gotta read the fine print, how it's worded. Trust me, that part I know about.
You definitely want to find out from Milton Cat what a maintenance contract would be.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Because I was gonna say, you're gonna have to go through them, then.
They come out and do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
They have a mobile truck that
Yep.
comes out and does it right on your site.
Yep,
And
exactly.
if there's any problems, they load it and bring it right to Milton
Yeah.
Cat. That I
Give you
know.
another one to use. Yep.
So, ask about that.
Sure thing.
Christine, by December.
Sure,
Thank you.
no problem.
All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
This is something that we brought up quite a while ago, and that's why I wanted to get it active again.
Yep.
Because it's, we're leasing and it's costing us.
If we already have the money encumbered, we've already been spending the money.
Exactly.
Might as well just buy it, yeah.
Makes sense, but just wanna go in with our eyes open.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
moving right along, we have a first reading of the food directors of food services, as you heard this evening, we're changing.
Yeah, we just, what we needed to do is just update it because it wasn't clear, the one we had, and we added a few new pieces to it, one of which was a bachelor's degree, because we feel that at this point in time, the job requires at least that level of education, so that's why that was the biggest change that we had.
Would you like us to waive the first reading and vote it?
That would be great. That would be excellent.
I'd entertain a motion to waive the first reading and
So
vote
moved.
it.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, we're waiving the first reading. I'd entertain a motion to accept the document as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's easy.
Okay. Donations, aha. This is a good part. This is from Lauren Matheson. I'm respectfully seeking approval of a $5,000 donation given to the Whitman Hanson Regional School District by Chrissy Steele on behalf of Cecile Higginson Murphy Foundation. The donation was made with the request that it be allocated to the Autism Spectrum Disorder Classroom at Hanson Middle School. After speaking with the program's key players and prioritizing the needs of the classroom, I would like to propose using the funds toward sensory equipment and augmentative curriculum pending approval. This is much appreciated, and it's a generous donation which will greatly benefit our students with unique and specific needs.
Motion to
Entertain a
accept.
motion to accept?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Okay. We've got some items to declare as surplus. Due to the recent change in adoption of Next Generation MCAS, the English Department would like to declare the following material surplus as they are outdated. 68 MCAS English Language Arts, Grade 7, copyright 2002. These books are currently located at Whitman Middle School. Please let me know if it's okay to box them up. Sincerely, Amy Fleck.
Motion.
Entertain a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second? Got it? All those, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Field trips. Whitman Hanson Ski Club wants to go to Cannon Ski Area in Franconia, New Hampshire.
Is this a replacement?
And they're changing the destination from Gunstock because of the cost. We had already approved, I believe, the Gunstock one, so. We have 3 or 4 chaperones. One's Julia Giglia, and the other ones would be determined. They're asking to waive the nurse because they have special personnel there, should there be a problem. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Superintendent's going to update us on the McQuon School.
I think one of the last things in your packet was a memo I sent, or a request to Mr. McHugh and Hanson, just about closing up McQuon and utilizing the cafeteria and gymnasium as storage space for the amount of materials that we still have located in there. Ernie Sandlin provided the Facilities Committee a little bit of information about what we plan on doing with anything that we can send out to different parts of the world at no cost to us, instead of just scrapping the materials that we have there. There's a lot of desks, there's a lot of things that probably could be useful to underprivileged areas of our world. For that storage space, instead of trying to buy storage bins, we're gonna keep up McQuon, so to speak. We're boarding it up now, draining the water out of the building, cutting the heat, but Ernie will maintain the grounds, do a walkthrough of that, so that the town of Hanson won't incur higher insurance rates, because there will be somebody still supervising the building. We're also gonna plow, and if there is any mowing in the spring that needs to be done in the field upkeep, we'll do that in return. Hopefully, we'll have this cleared out by the end of June, by the close of school in 2019.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We already voted the cell tower. Subcommittee reports. I entertain a motion to accept the warrant subcommittee minutes of October 25th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Fred?
Just want to ask that when the warrants were, before they were signed, were they completely read, all the backup, et cetera? Just asking the folks that signed.
Page for page? No. No. We hire people that if something's wrong and they catch it, as far as the treasurer, and all the other financial people. So sit there and read page for page? No. Don't have that kind of time.
I understand where you're coming from. I'm asking the question based upon.
Wish I had the time you have for it, but I don't, Fred.
That's why I don't like coming.
Okay, one of them was signed just by you. The other one, Fred's asking the question. The other one signed by Robbie, Chris Scriven, and Chris Howard.
Yeah, certainly I'm read every page.
Yeah, my process is I spot check. I'll grab and match up 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my process.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay. Policy Subcommittee, I don't believe is met.
No.
No. Facilities and Capital Subcommittee. Met
We
this evening.
met this evening. I think you pretty much heard all of our meeting, with the exception of the matrix for capital improvement for the entire district and all the individual schools. Christine has those. She could, I'm sure, email those out to anyone that wanted a copy. Other than that, nothing.
Any questions for Fred? Legislative updates. Excuse me.
I don't have anything to report, I'm sure Fred.
Fred?
I do, and sorry if I'm gonna try and be as quick as I can, and I'm probably gonna ask the committee for their guidance and okay in proceeding. Full-day kindergarten is something that we've been trying to accomplish for quite a few years, and it seems like we can never just get it going in the budget. I've had some informal discussions with Senator Brady directly, Allison Sullivan, who will be our new state rep from Whitman, and with a representative in Josh Cutler's office. And Senator Brady did express his enthusiasm in speaking with Mr. Cutler as well. What I'd like to do is ask them for an earmark in the FY20 budget, which would fund us for full-day kindergarten, give us the seed money completely to start the program. And should that happen, you would want to hold off for FY20 because you can't spend the money in case there were 9C cuts, and then we'd be in real trouble. So to be able to implement that for FY21. If we implemented it in FY21, there would be no direct financial impact to either of the towns because it would be funded by the state. And it would give a chance for us to soften the blow for FY22 with what would ever be left in the revolving account from kindergarten, because we would no longer need that, as well as we would now be getting the full Chapter 70 funding, whatever amount that may or may not be, come FY22 for the kindergartners as well. In my mind, it's one of the only ways that we can get full-day kindergarten, and I don't know if I need a vote or just perhaps the committee to acknowledge and authorize me to proceed to have these discussions, to be asking for this.
Well, I guess my question would be, haven't we had these discussions with them right here in front of the whole committee? And they're supposed to be advocating for doing this, period? Isn't that what their job technically is?
Yes. Nobody's ever asked them directly for an earmark.
Oh, we definitely have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't see any reason why you can't.
Oh, I'm all for
I
it.
mean, absolutely, but we've asked for it, but absolutely. Yeah, ask for it again.
Senator
Absolutely.
Brady was very accommodating in being all for it.
Why don't we invite him to come to a meeting?
Yep.
And do it formally right in front of everybody, so we can kind of hold their feet to the fire.
We can do
I
that.
think it's a great idea. I really do.
Yep.
I agree.
Thought. Can we write them a letter, Michelle, and maybe get them here to specifically discuss what Fred just told you about earmarking the money for the startup of all-day K?
Have to be in January.
Well, consensus of the committee to send an invite letter to the state.
General court doesn't start till January when she gets sworn
I
in.
think it's fabulous.
Yeah, for our January meeting, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, they're- okay.
They're gonna be in
We
session by the
invite them-
time,
We do invite them to.
Well, they have to have the new starter, she
Right.
has to be sworn in as the
Right.
new state representative, so you have to wait till
Right.
that happens.
is that the 15th? Like, I mean, when is
I
it?
think it's
around the middle
I
of
think
the-
it's a great idea.
Might have to be February.
Good,
I'll find-
good
I'll
job,
find
Fred.
We invite them to
Trying
the
to-
meeting anyway in February, which is the
February.
beginning of February, so maybe that'll be part of your budget.
Plus, it'll get us all to meet the new state rep, you know, and we can,
So for the February meeting, we'll,
Okay.
not January, but some will be sworn.
That's fine.
We're talking about.
but I mean, it's good that Fred initiated, you've already talked to Allison Sullivan, and
Correct.
good, awesome.
So I've spoken to her, as I said, I spoke to Senator Brady. I haven't spoken to Josh, I just spoke to someone in his office.
It'd be good to get them all here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Anything else?
Nope, that's about it.
Thank you, Fred. Great idea. Pilgrim Area Collaborative, Mr. Boyce isn't here. He is volunteered to represent the school committee for the Polar Plunge, though. Negotiation Subcommittee, we have another meeting coming up with Unit B, and hopefully we can
Pretty close.
wrap it up. We're pretty close, and we'll come back to the committee and report to you then exactly what's going on, and we'll be able to get everything signed and done. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday.